Hi, good evening, and yesterday, thank you for coming to class. I had a good time chatting with you about LGBTIQ plus and disasters. So what did we do yesterday for this first week? We did less than what I expected, but it's my fault. I always talk too much. So we started with the question of disasters and not natural disasters. So we agreed on the fact that disasters involve people, involve communities, and it can lead to some issues if you put the word natural to that. And one of the major issues is the easy way out for a lot of politicians, and people say, oh, it's natural, it's not us. So it's a good way of saying, oh, we do nothing about it. And then we moved to LGBTIQ plus, and I started by asking that very cheeky question, asking you why should we care? And to know why we should care, we first investigated with utilitarianism, which is a theory that was developed first by Jeremy Bentham and then further developed by John Stuart Mills. And in this utilitarianism, what do we say? We say that the main motto of it is the greatest good for the largest amount of people, the largest number of people. And it entails that in a disaster area, you need to try to save as many as you can. But if during the disaster period you can make choices of who you're going to help based on the amount of resources that you need to allocate to save one person or another, it's not something that you can do before disaster. So before the disaster strike, any member of your community, being part of that community, needs to be taken care of in a positive way. Which means that when you have a social contract between you and the sovereign, I'm using the word sovereign, thinking about Hobbes, or the social contract of Rousseau, or more recently the social contract of Rawls. There are those elements that bind us together, and our leaders have to actually protect us also against enemies from the outside, but thinking about Hobbes. But in that case, it also means any mishaps. It needs to protect us or help us give us protection or help us develop a protection system when we have natural hazards that can turn into disasters. So it's part of their role. And that's why when you see in Japan, you have like a disaster in the countryside, even if it's just for a few people, the country goes straight and go and help because it's their duty. They have to. And it's true everywhere. Or in most countries, let's say, where you have a social contract of a government which is responsible. And then one of you was saying, well, when you have like a despotic megalomaniac, things can change. And indeed, in that case, things can change. That was a very good point. Some leaders do not respect the part of the job that they have to do, but that's maybe another issue that we have here. The main point is that in the face of a disaster, as a community, we have to get anyone on board, and it's not because you are LGBTIQ plus or any other way you want to divide the people in the community. It's not a good reason to let some people aside. And then we continued from that. That was the introduction, basically. And then we continued from that, asking the question of gender. So when you have gender, we have a very binary view of what gender are, and this is based on a Western construction of genders, which is very much a Judeo-Christian construction of genders. Adam and Eve, I think I gave that example. this goes through the whole speech, the whole narratives, that's the word I wanted, the whole narrative of disaster and disaster risk. And it put women, which in that case, the binary case, that's the first step, it put women into some defined position, defined role in the society and in the face of disasters. And I try to challenge some of those views. And that's why we get into the text, and into the text after looking at that first wording from the United Nations, which is definitely drafted by men, with a write-up which is still keeping that framework. Then I moved into a more critical part of text where you have also Simone de Beauvoir, and Simone de Beauvoir who actually put a finger on that, saying, well, women are defined from men, they are defined as something related to men. What about we define them for what they are, and not because they are weaker or stronger or faster or slower than men? Women are women, men are men. And it goes into gender. So we need to tackle this issue first if we want to do a fair trial, or if we want to actually be fair to a LGBTIQ plus community as well. And this is what we will do next week. And for that, we need to escape from that binary Western view. And to escape from it, we need to maybe look at other concepts of gender. And I think I give you the warriors in Indonesia. And there is maybe the text from the Philippines, I'm not quite sure I included it, where you have actually gender which are much more fluid than what you can see in Western tradition. And also, the text is the way it's written is also showing that they are not only the victim and the weak link in society. They are power, and they have also, like other groups, some qualities, some abilities that we need to recognize. We should not define them as weaker or as a minority compared to the men and women, which is the same mistake we were making before, but define them for who they are and not who they are compared to another group. So that's what we'll do next week. And I wanted to go into power questions, but questions of power defined by sociology can be a bit daunting if I just didn't know that you guys were from so many different backgrounds. So maybe next week I will give you another text. I was telling you that we wrote a paper, or she wrote a paper, and we helped her just frame it. Azusa Yamashita from the Rainbow Network in Iwate. And maybe I will just give you that paper to read so that you can see what it means actually, what are the difficult and the ordeal, not the difficulties, it's an ordeal, that some of the members of the LGBTIQ plus have been going through when the 2011 disaster occurred. And I think that will be all for me for that set of lectures. Thank you for coming. I look forward to seeing you next week. I enjoyed the discussion. I enjoyed the discussion with the skeptic and people who tell me, I don't think so. I think you're wrong. That was fun as well. And hopefully those we didn't have the chance to speak too much will speak a bit more next week as well. Cheers.